as this is still a pending case. We're unable to answer any questions concerning information that is not on the public record at this time. Due to the number of attendees,
Hi, this is Tracy Sinclair. We are going live down to a press conference with the U.S. Attorney's Office speaking about some drug charges
when you do ask a question,
an organized
please
drug
give your name
operation
and news
here
outlet
in Alaska.
And then for those on the conference line, we will call your name and you can ask your question. I would like to do a quick little sound check for those on the conference line. If you could maybe just speak up and say who's online, that would be great.
As they are continuing to get set up downtown here in the Anchorage
it sounds
office.
Like we're good. If you are on the conference
we don't
line,
have much
please
more
ensure
information
that you're on
beyond
mute
this. They
when you
just
are
have
not
announced
speaking.
that they are going
Thank
to
you.
talk about the charges in a large
if you do have any
organized
other follow-up
drug
questions,
operation here in
on
Alaska.
what
We have a
was
number of people
discussed today,
expected to speak,
you can go ahead
including
and
U.S.
email me
Attorney
your
Elaine
questions.
Tucker
My
from the
contact
District
info,
of
if you don't
Alaska,
already have it, will be in
Special
your
Agent
media
in
kits
charge
today.
David Zahn. He's with DEA in Anchorage. The Assistant Inspector in charge, Jared Resendez, with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service and the Seattle Division, and Special Agent in charge Anthony Jung with the FBI, and of course Captain Cornelius Sims. He will be speaking with the Alaska State Troopers.
Relevant court documents,
join
graphics, a copy
as she
of the press
continues.
release, and then also my contact info. So one of my fellow PAOs, I believe, has already passed out a press release to everyone, so you're becoming familiar with the case. And then with that, I will be back in a few minutes and we will begin. All right, thank you.
And this is a live look down at it is in the James M. Fitzgerald U.S. Courthouse and Federal Building, downtown Anchorage, the U.S. Attorney's main conference room. We are preparing for them to talk about the large organized drug operation here in Alaska, some charges that they're going to announce today. We don't have any more information than that, but we will be watching and they will rejoin us here in just a few minutes. And it does look like we are getting ready to begin. As I said, we were told officials will announce federal charges in a large-scale organized drug ring in Alaska, and let's listen in.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. My name is Elaine Tucker, and I'm the United States Attorney for the District of Alaska. I'd like to share with you some details about a multi-agency investigation that was part of the Justice Department's Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Task Force, or OCDETF. This investigation has resulted in indictments charging 53 defendants for allegedly running an international drug trafficking organization targeting Alaska. As a reminder, an indictment is merely an allegation, and all defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. For roughly 2 years, prosecutors from my office have been working hand in hand with federal, state, and local law enforcement in an ongoing, large-scale drug trafficking investigation. As a result of this investigation, a federal grand jury has returned 9 indictments alleging charges against 53 defendants for crimes related to trafficking massive amounts of drugs from Mexico to as far away as Savunga, and with committing violent crimes to further their criminal enterprise operations. The criminal enterprise allegedly sent drugs to Anchorage, Dillingham, Fairbanks, Good News Bay, Ketchikan, Kodiak, New Stuyahok, Palmer, Sandpoint, Savunga, Sitka, Togiak, Tyonek, and Wasilla. A list of the individuals who have been charged in connection with this drug trafficking organization is in today's press release. The indictments allege that the leader of the drug trafficking organization is Heraclio Sanchez Rodriguez. At all times during the conspiracy, Sanchez Rodriguez was an inmate at a state prison in California, where he is serving a sentence of 25 years to life. Sanchez Rodriguez used multiple contraband cell phones to communicate with drug suppliers in Mexico and with leaders and members of the enterprise here in Alaska. He gave direction as to how to traffic the drugs, who would traffic the drugs, and what communities to traffic the drugs to in Alaska. Christina Quintana is charged as one of the organization's high-ranking members located in Alaska. At all times during the conspiracy, Quintana was an inmate at Highland Mountain Correctional Facility in Eagle River. Quintana allegedly recruited soon-to-be released inmates from Highland to be distributors for the criminal enterprise. Upon the release, the newly recruited members would receive packages of drugs in the mail and distribute the drugs across the state. The 53 named defendants are connected to the drug trafficking organization through a singular conspiracy charge in each indictment: conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute controlled substances, primarily fentanyl. The indictments contain charges related to operating a continuing criminal enterprise, drug trafficking, and commission of violent crimes. To further this operation, these violent crimes include the May 2023 double homicide of Sunday Powers and Cammie Clark. The indictments also include charges against members of the organization in North Pole for the distribution of fentanyl resulting in the overdose death of Adam Sakinen. We have also charged over 25 defendants in this case with money laundering conspiracy to promote the drug trafficking organization. The charging documents specify at least 76 separate money laundering transactions, a significant number of which were sent to Mexico. Today's announcement is a great example of the partnership and collaborative effort at all levels of law enforcement to protect the citizens of Alaska. As I mentioned earlier, this transnational investigation and prosecution are part of the Justice Department's Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, or OCDETF. I want to publicly thank the DEA Anchorage District Office and Seattle Field Division, the FBI Anchorage Field Office, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service Anchorage Domicile and Seattle Division, the IRS Criminal Investigation Seattle Field Office, the Alaska State Troopers, the Anchorage Police Department, the Palmer Police Department, and our high-intensity drug trafficking area task forces for their incredible collaborative work to piece this case together and uncover the impact and extent of the enterprise. The influx of fentanyl into our cities and villages has caused untold devastation throughout the state. Together, we have successfully dismantled one of the biggest drug trafficking rings harming Alaska communities in the history of our state. My office, in partnership with phenomenal men and women of the Alaska law enforcement community, will continue to work tirelessly to disrupt any drug trafficking operations targeting Alaska. With that, I will turn the mic over to David Zahn, the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the DEA Alaska Field Office, to discuss additional details surrounding the drug trafficking investigation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is David Zahn. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Drug Enforcement Administration, Anchorage District Office. Fentanyl is the most dangerous drug threat facing our country. This investigation targeted and dismantled a drug network operating in California, Oregon, Washington State, and Alaska with the intent of distributing deadly fentanyl to communities in Alaska, including rural and Alaska Native villages. The investigation resulted in 53 indictments. In Alaska, over 36 kilograms of fentanyl were seized, 27 kilograms of methamphetamine, and over 11 kilograms of heroin. In addition, during the investigation in California, law enforcement seized an additional approximately 900,000 fake fentanyl pills and 10 kilograms of fentanyl powder. The DEA is dedicated and committed to targeting fentanyl traffickers and raising fentanyl awareness. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 50 times more powerful than heroin and 100 times more powerful than morphine. Fentanyl is a leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 18 to 45. Fentanyl is commonly trafficked or sold as fake pills, made to look like prescription medications such as OxyContin. There's a graphic on the wall there demonstrating the difference between a legitimate OxyContin pill and a fake fentanyl pill. Very difficult to see the difference. Fentanyl is also sold and trafficked, found mixed with other illegal drugs such as heroin, methamphetamine, and cocaine. Only 2 milligrams of fentanyl is considered a potentially lethal dose. That is the amount of fentanyl that would fit on the tip of a pencil. According to DEA testing, of the fake fentanyl pills seized, 7 out of 10 pills, which is up from 4 out of 10 pills in the last couple of years, contain a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. In this investigation, large amounts of fentanyl were seized heading to small Alaska villages and Alaska Native communities, and in some instances, more fatal doses were seized than members of the population of the community. For example, in Sand Point, more lethal doses were seized than 4 times the population. In Good News Bay, 21 times, and in Tyonek, 44 times. This investigation highlights DEA's commitment to work with our partners to remove fentanyl from our communities in Alaska. I would like to thank the United States Attorney's Office and all of our local, state, and federal partners for their commitment and dedication during this investigation. At this point, I will turn it over to the U.S. Postal Inspection Service.
Good afternoon, and thank you, U.S. Attorney Tucker, for having us today. I'm Assistant Inspector in Charge Jared Resendez, of the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, Seattle Division. The distribution and use of illegal and dangerous narcotics remains a plague in our communities. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service remains steadfast in our commitment to ensure the U.S. mail remains safe and secure for all members of our community. To do so every day, postal inspectors here in Alaska and across the country work with our law enforcement partners to do everything we can to identify those responsible for using the U.S. mail to transport illegal and dangerous narcotics. In Alaska, we've experienced great success in identifying these shipments and bringing these drug dealers to justice to protect our communities. This investigation represented a significant time and resource commitment that involved the writing and execution of search warrants for United States Postal Service parcels destined to over a dozen cities and remote villages throughout Alaska. The graph over to the side demonstrates the impact that these parcels and the coverage that they had in the state. The efforts put forward by the U.S. Postal Inspection Service and our law enforcement partners resulted in the seizure of a substantial amount of illegal narcotics, including hundreds of thousands of fentanyl-laced pills before they could be delivered. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service worked closely with our partners in law enforcement to identify the methods of distribution, the distributors in Alaska, the source of supply, and the leadership of this criminal enterprise. Collectively, with the U.S. Attorney's Office, we were able to shut down this drug trafficking organization. Partnerships with federal, state, and local law enforcement are what make our success possible. We will continue this work as long as it takes to ensure our communities are safe from the addiction and overdoses these drug shipments bring with them. I thank you for coming this afternoon. Now I'll turn it over to the FBI.
Good afternoon. I am Tony Young, the Special Agent in charge of the Anchorage FBI Field Office. In support of the Department of Justice, OCDF, task forces, and HIDA initiatives, a priority for us is to identify, disrupt, and ultimately dismantle transnational criminal organizations. As such, in this investigation, the FBI worked in full partnership with DEA and all of the other partners standing before you to identify this organization, to dismantle it. Additionally, the FBI launched in parallel a coordinated investigation into the May 2023 murders of Sunday Powers and Cammie Clark. Before I go any further, on behalf of the FBI, we'd like to offer our condolences to the families of both of those victims. During this investigation, we learned that Sanchez Rodriguez, Tamara Bren, and Kevin Peterson II allegedly conspired to carjack, kidnap, and ultimately murder these two victims. At the direction of Sanchez Rodriguez and furtherance of the conspiracy, the victims were murdered with a firearm and buried in a shallow grave near Trapper Creek in May of 2023. Additionally, during the kidnapping, the victims were restrained and stopped from making a 911 call that was in progress. The FBI is grateful to all of our partners that we continue to work not only the conspiracy but the murder portion of this to be able to quickly bring justice to this matter. Transnational criminal organizations impact the safety and well-being of every community, and in this case, this stands as an example of the partnerships that we are able to bring all of our unique tools to bear to investigate these matters. We use intelligence, our strong partnerships, and share everything across the board to include our resources to engage these matters. At this time, I'll turn it over to the Alaska State Troopers.
Good afternoon. My name is Captain Cornelius Sims with the Alaska State Troopers, and I'm the commander of the statewide drug enforcement unit. I oversee 29 state trooper investigators and work to dismantle and disrupt drug trafficking organizations. I also work closely with the 3 HIDA initiatives in these efforts. Large-scale investigations like this could not be successfully worked without dedicated law enforcement officers from the local, state, and federal level, sharing information and working closely together. When the troopers launched our investigation into the deaths of Sunday Powers and Cammie Clark in Trapper Creek, Alaska, it was a close working relationship with the DEA and FBI that helped us identify the drug nexus and find the people responsible and hold them accountable for their actions. To those that think they can bring dangerous drugs into our state without being held accountable, let this group of dedicated law enforcement officials demonstrate that we will not rest until we can find you, arrest you, and hold you accountable for your actions. I thank you for your time and turn the time back over to U.S. Attorney Tucker.
All right, at this point, we are going to move into the Q&A portion of the press conference. I just want to remind everyone, when you are asking a question, please state your name and your agency or the news organization that you're with. And then I also want to remind you to keep your questions to clarification questions from what's discussed here today or on the public record, because this is still very much a pending case. So with that, I'll go ahead and take the first question. Go ahead, Tess.
Hi, my name is Tess Williams. I'm with Anchorage Daily News. How were Sunday Powers and Cammie Clark connected to the people involved in this?
The indictments set forth the facts that we can discuss related to that. But we can't discuss an ongoing investigation.
All right. Next question, go ahead, Wesley.
Hi, Wesley Early with Alaska Public Media. This press release notes that 54 people have been charged, but your list only has 53 people. Is it 53 or 54?
We've arrested 53 people.
Okay, so, but have 54 people been charged?
Yes.
Okay, do you have the name of the 54th person, or are you still seeking them out?
We're in the middle of an investigation, so we can't comment on that.
Okay.
Any other questions from within the room? Nope.
I mean, if,
Go ahead.
Sure. I believe the DEA representative mentioned that hundreds of thousands of fentanyl pills had been seized. Were all of those intended for sale in Alaska? Because that strikes me as like one pill for every 4 people minimum.
Oh, yeah, so we have a chart of how many doses there were for people in each of the population areas where the drugs went to, and it's over here as well, and I believe we have maybe printed copies of that. But that'll tell you, for example, as you mentioned earlier, there were 44 lethal doses for every person in Togiak, I believe it was. So, and some of these communities were enough lethal doses to kill the communities several times over. Obviously, the most drugs we seized, as you can see from the chart, were in Anchorage, but because of the population here, the lethal doses per person was considerably less. But
So a lot of these defendants, it says, have already appeared in court and these indictments have already been publicly filed. Why is this announcement coming at this point?
well, as you know, we've had obviously many dozens of defendants. The first ones were indicted in June, and the investigation's been ongoing. And so we have been furthering the investigation, gathering the facts we needed so that the grand jury could be presented with them and indict the people. And the grand jury has indicted the 54 people thus far through the most recent grand jury in January. And to the extent necessary, will continue its work in this case.
With the ongoing investigation, is it possible that there could be more people arrested or indicted in relation to this?
That's always possible. We don't have any idea where the investigation might lead.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and move over to the attendees that are online. So I'm just going to go ahead and call out your name, and if you could just come off mute and ask your question, that would be great. So I'm going to go with Jack Barnwell with Fairbanks News Miner. Can you please come off and ask your question?
I have no questions at this. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Jack. What about Jordan or Jazz from News of the North? Do either of you have any questions?
No questions.
All right, great. And then Nick from KSRM, do you have any questions? Hearing none. Well, send it back over.
Again, I'd really like to thank all of you for your time and thank all of our law enforcement partners for their amazing work in disrupting this drug trafficking organization in Alaska, and offer sincere condolences on behalf of all of us to all of the victims in this case. And those who commit these crimes should rest assured that we will continue to vigorously investigate and prosecute them. So thank you for your time.
And that was a live press conference coming to us from downtown Anchorage. This was announcing charges against 53 defendants. There are actually 54 people who have been indicted on these charges. 53 defendants have been arrested. As we heard from U.S. Attorney Tucker, it was a 2-year investigation. They basically a large-scale drug trafficking operation here in Alaska. And they talked about where these drugs went. They went all over Alaska, Anchorage, Dillingham, areas around Ketchikan and Kodiak, Sandpoint, Sitka, Wasilla. There was a whole list. We didn't get them all listed there. And one of the interesting facts about this is how much they were talking about the dosages in some of these communities, how there were more pills sent. In some cases, like Tyonek, 44 times the number of pills went to that village than was the population. So really intense number of pills going out to these communities around Alaska. And we will continue to follow this story. Of course, we will see more tonight on alaskasnewssource.com. Thank you so much for joining us here, and thank you. Have a good day.